Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. Michael Mann has done some pretty awful science during his career, and he put it on full display today on Twitter. A meteorologist named Eric Fisher made this tweet earlier. Record heat concentrated in the Ohio Valley to southeast today. Fourth straight record high for Atlanta, up to 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Huntsville, Alabama got to 100. So Michael Mann, who has me blocked on Twitter, responded, "Hey John Christie and Roy Spencer, hope you're not finding that record century mark heat too uncomfortable down there in Huntsville." John Christie and Roy Spencer head up NASA's satellite temperature program at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And John Christie is the Alabama state climatologist. Roy Spencer responded to Michael Mann's ridiculous tweet with, "Since we have approximately 100 years of Alabama temperature data that show no warming trend, we know better than to confuse daily weather with climate. John, the Alabama state climatologist, doesn't use Twitter." And Michael Mann responded with this map from Climate Central and said, "Who's confused Roy?" What the map shows is summer temperature trends June, July, August from 1970 to 2013. His map makes it look like the United States is burning up. But why did he start his trend in 1970? That was right near the peak of the Ice Age scare. This article is from the Washington Post, July 9, 1971. U.S. scientist sees new ice age coming. The world could be as little as 50 or 60 years away from a disastrous new ice age, a leading atmospheric scientist predicts. Dr. S.I. Rasool of NASA and Columbia University says that. Obviously, it was very cold around 1970, so that's a terrible time to start a trend. Had Michael Mann chosen to look at the National Climate Assessment rather than some junk science map from Climate Central, he would have seen something completely different. This map shows change in the warmest temperature of the year, 1986 to 2016 average minus 1901 to 1960 average. You can see that peak temperatures in most of the U.S. and in Alabama have gotten much cooler since 1960. These graphs from the National Climate Assessment show heat waves going back to the year 1900. Heat waves in the United States were much worse prior to 1970 and peaked in the 1930s. So you can see why Michael Mann started his map here, because it was the lowest temperatures of the past century. What Michael Mann is doing is not science. He's showing the exact opposite of the long-term trend. The southeastern U.S. has had much worse heat waves in the past than this year's 4-day event. One of those heat waves occurred in 1925, when the southeastern U.S. was over 100 degrees every day from August 6th to September 25th. During the 1925 heat wave in the southeast, temperatures peaked at 112 degrees at Clarksville, Tennessee on September 7th. This year's 4-day heat wave isn't even in the ballpark of what occurred in 1925. On September 7th, 1925, it was 112 degrees in Tennessee, 110 in Mississippi, 109 in Arkansas, 108 in Kentucky, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Texas, 106 in Alabama, Illinois, and Oklahoma, 105 in Arizona, Georgia, Kansas, and North Carolina, 103 in Indiana, 101 in New Mexico, and 100 in California. Once again, the heat wave of this year isn't even in the ballpark of what occurred in 1925, when atmospheric carbon dioxide levels were very low. Alabama has recorded temperatures over 100 degrees on September 14, 8 times since the year 1900. This occurred in 1908, 1910, 1911, 1915, 1921, 1925, 1927, and 1954. Today is the first time in 65 years. Michael Mann demonstrates little competence at climate science, and he's a key player in the EPA's CO2 endangerment finding. And the EPA's CO2 endangerment finding is the key legal basis behind shutting down the U.S. energy industry. If Michael Mann went unblock me on Twitter, he might learn something, but this kind of incompetence can't be allowed to hurt future generations of Americans. We all need to demand that Congress and the White House force a revisitation of the EPA's CO2 endangerment finding. It's a huge threat to all of us. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been playing back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.